Hello everyone, how are you? This is Pom and welcome back to your channel Safety with Pom. Today I'm going to start our training ISO 14001 2015 Environmental Management System Lead Auditor Training. So this training is very important for each and everyone who is managing the business, and if you are maintaining any ISO certification or you are working towards to maintain the environment or save the environment also. And it is very important for those people who's working as a safety professionals, HSC professionals, or if you are working as a sustainable officer or sustainable manager, or any way you are maintaining the environment or managing the environment related things in your organizations. And as a public also, as a responsible citizen of any country or as a responsible person, we should know about the environmental things also, because nowadays it is a major concerns around the world, and so many countries they have come up with the different ideas and they have allocated the budget to save the environment, sustainable program, and certain other things also. Okay, so let's start our training ISO 14001 Environmental Management System, and this is the Lead Auditor Training. So let's look some basic things about the ISO. The ISO, the full form is International Organization for Standardization. This is the full form of ISO. It's a worldwide federation of national standard bodies. Okay, from more than 145 countries, they have their what you call people in this ISO organizations, and they deal with certain other things like health and safety, quality management things, and so many ISO standards are there. So they will be there as a member in this body. Okay, so ISO is a non-governmental organization which is established in 1947 and based in Geneva, Switzerland. It is in Geneva in Switzerland. Its mission is to promote the development of standardizations and related activities in the worldwide with view to facilitating the international exchange of goods and services. So that is the main concern of ISO. That is the main objective of ISO. And scientific, technological, and economic activity, that is they are working also. And ISO's work results in international agreements which are published as international standards and other types of ISO documents. They publish so many types of documents, ISO standards and certain others document also they do publish. The three primary governance groups of ISO are the ISO General Assembly. This is the one, and the second one is the ISO Council, and the third one is the ISO Technical Management Board, ISO TMB. Okay, which meets 3 times each year and reports to and advises to the ISO councils on all matters concerning organization, coordination, strategic planning, and different other things. So they meet and they will give the suggestions to the board. The ISO TMB consists of the ISO Vice President for technical related elected member bodies, including NSI for the USA, American National Safety Institute. Okay, after then representatives and those paying members of the International Organization for Standardization, and as a founding member of the ISO NSI. So these are the 3 key different bodies that will work under the ISO. And as you know that ISO is a non-governmental organization, and more than 145 countries members are there in the ISO. And if they have to make any ISO standard, all the members from the different countries they get together and they will give their suggestions before they publish any standards or before they review or revise any standard. So these are the main thing about the ISO standards. Now ISO 14001 2015 clauses. The first one is a scope. Let me tell you one thing, that ISO 14001, ISO 45001, and ISO 9001, all of these 3 standards have same clauses. Okay, so all these standards have 10 clauses, 1 2 3. These are the normal one. After the main after 3, the fourth, from 4 to 10, these are the main clauses. So 7 we have the main clauses, 3 are the basic terms, and the definitions and the scopes are there. The first 3 clauses is under first clause we have the scope, enhancement. Under the scope, enhancement of environmental performance, fulfillment of compliance obligator, and achievement of environmental objectives. So this is the scope of ISO 14001. Okay, so that is the main, these are the main scope of ISO. After the normative references, there are no normative references, okay, in this standards. But when you are making your ISO 14001 environmental management system manual, you will take some references. So under this clause number 2, you have to put some normative references, like you can say ISO standards, reference to from the ISO standards, government bodies, local governments, and international organizations. So those references you can mention when you are preparing your company manual. So these are the scope for the ISO. But when you will prepare the document for the ISO 14001 for your own company, that time the scope will be different. Okay, scope means it is a boundary that will define that the company will work under inside this boundary, and whatever the things and whatever the work you are doing inside that boundary, you have to make sure that in each and everything you are following the ISO 14001 standards and the requirements. Okay, so that will come under the scope. The international standard is applicable to any organization. It doesn't mean that you have a very large number of people or you have a less number of people. So it will applicable to each and every organization. If you are maintaining any ISO 14001 2015 certification, then you have to manage all the requirements. So it is the requirement there. After then, the products and services that the organization determines, it can either control or influence considering a life cycle perspective. This international standard does not state specific environmental performance criteria. So it will give you only the guidance that how you have to do, okay, and how you have to manage. But it will not tell you that what you have to follow, and it will not show you that you have to go in this way. You can go in any other way, like whatever way you want to go, but last thing is you have to make sure that you are getting that main thing from those different ways, like you are maintaining the environment, you are managing the environmental things inside your organizations. So that is the main concern. Terms and definitions. So the third clause will talk about the terms and definitions. There are so many terms and definitions are there in ISO 14001 standards. I will request you to please go through that one and read those terms and definitions. So that will let you know that what is the meaning of those terms and definitions, and it will be easier for you to maintain the ISO 14001 certification. Like the management system, it is the same one. Manage set of interrelated or interacting elements of an organization to establish policies and objectives and process to achieve those objectives. That is the definitions of management system. Then environmental management system, part of the management system used to manage environmental aspects, fulfill compliance obligations, and address risk and opportunities. Then environmental policy, organizations, top management, and interested parties. So it will tell you all the things, because in the standard, if you will go, you will find different clauses. In those different clauses, they have mentioned top management. Now, who is the top management? The people who is managing the business and who directs and controls an organization. Those are the people called top management. Interested parties, person or organization that can affect or be affected by or perceive itself to affected by a decision or activity. Any person or any organization who will be affected by your decisions or activity, those are your interested parties. So likewise, there are so many definitions in the standard. So please go through that one and be clear. ISO 14001 2015. Now the fourth clause, it will talk about the context of the organizations. So it will talk about the context of the organization. In the number 4 clause, there are sub clauses 4.1, 4.2, 4.3 and 4.4. We will discuss about each of them in a very detailed way. Then clause number 5, it's talk about leadership. Okay, 5.1, 2 and 3. Then we have the clause number 6, planning, actions to address risk and opportunities, 6.1 and 6.2. Operations, clause number 7 is the resources. Okay, and continual improvement, it is a continual improvement. And the support, resources and support, clause number 7 is the resources and support. It will talk about the resources that you need to maintain the ISO 14001 standards, competency, awareness and different other things that we require. Clause number 9, let's talk about the performance evaluation. Then improvement, clause number 10. So these are the main clauses, okay, in ISO 14001. So context of the organization, support, operation, performance evaluation and improvement. So these are the 7 main clauses. So ISO 14001, 9001 and 45001, all of these standards have 7 main clauses and same clauses we have. Okay, context of organization, leadership, planning, support, operation and performance evaluation and improvement. So these are the main clauses. Now how does the new ISO 14000 2015 work? Before ISO 14001 there was another standard, ISO 14001 2004, that was not valid now. So we are managing ISO 14001 2015. But how does it work? So what are the environmental issues? So environmental issues, we have to it talk about the environmental issues in different clauses. In clause number 8.1, outsourced process, planned for unplanned changes, 6.1.2 clause number, and environmental aspects versus product life cycle, transportation and of disposal. So it will talk about the 6.1.2 clause and 8.1 clause. Then we have the risk and opportunities general, it is in 6.1.1. Now significant aspects, it is 6.1.2, legal requirements 6.1.3, and potential emergencies, it is mentioned in 8.2 and 6.1.2. So these are the environmental issues which is mentioned in different clauses here. So these are the clauses where all the issues have been mentioned. Now how they are managed, how you have to manage. Now the different clauses in the standard also, they give you the suggestion, they give you idea that how you can manage, and they required some requirements also. Communication requires outsource process, contractors, others and stages. Okay, this is the communication requirement. Environmental requirements for procurement, environmental requirements, it's the decision, it's for the design and development of the product service. Competence 7.2 and awareness 7.3 and operational control 8.1. Now planning action to address 6.1, 6.1.4, then target and objectives 6.2.1 and 6.2.2. Emergency response plan 8.2. So these are the clauses will talk about how you can manage the environmental issues. These issues can be managed through these clauses. Okay, these clauses can manage your environmental issues. Now how they are checked? Once you are managing these environmental issues, how you can check? You can check through these clauses. So these clauses will talk about how you can manage the environmental issues. Okay, now when you are checking on that how you are managing, and after then how you are checking how you can check whether they managed or not, after then how issues are fixed and improved. Now like monitoring, you have to continually monitor. So these clauses will talk about the continual monitoring. Okay, continual improvement, corrective action and preventive action and management review. So these are the main clauses, and in this way we have to manage the ISO 14001 2015 standards, and in this way the environmental management systems will work. Okay, now let's start our main clauses. Our main clause is start with the clause number 4, context of the organization. In the context of the organization, the first clause we have the 4.1, understanding the organization's needs and its context. Now the understanding the organization needs, determine the internal and external issues relevant to environmental management system. Now you have to identify the internal and external issues that could be relevant to the environmental management system. Okay, internal issues. What is the internal issues related to the environment? Like you are using the water, that is the internal issues. You are using more water, you are using the chemical, that chemical is going through the drainage, so that is the issue. If it will go through the drainage to the sea water and the different water, what will happen? Marine life will be affected. So how you gonna control that one? So these are the issues. In this way you have to identify. These are the internal issues. Now the external issues, how that external issue will affect your business. Now global warming, it is a major concern nowadays. Due to global warming, what is happening? The temperature is increasing day by day. Now there is a law in UAE that in UAE there is a law that in the summer month, starting from 15th of June to September 15th, the worker who's working outside, construction worker or any worker who's working outside environment, they are not allowed to work between 12 to 3 p.m. So this is the external issue because of the environment. Because the environment changing, now the government has put restriction that the people cannot work outside from 12 to 3 p.m. So that is the external issue. Now what will happen because of this external issue? Your business will affected. Now maybe you have to pay more for your worker. Maybe your worker cannot work continuously. Maybe they will work 8 o'clock in the morning and they have to stop the work 12 o'clock. So 4 hours. Now again 3 hours they have to stop. Now again after 3 o'clock they have to start the work. So what will happen? The work life will imbalance. They will get irritated. The more accident or incident can happen. So in this way you have to identify the external issues which can affect your business. After then, include environmental conditions being affected of or capable affecting the organizations. So as I told you that in this way the environmental issues which is affecting your organizations or they are capable to affect your business, you need to identify them. So this is a high level understanding. Include important environmental topics. Include changing circumstances. So environmental topics that we have to include also, and the changing circumstances which is changing nowadays, those also need to be included in the organization's context. Okay, so in clause number 4.1 you have to write down the internal and external issues which is affecting the environmental. Understanding aspects and impact is extremely one-dimensional when compared to understanding the context of the organization. Understanding includes the organization's direct and indirect environmental consequences that can affect the business and legal requirement also. As I told you that I gave you one example, UAE legal requirement, that is an environmental related thing also. Whenever the summer will come, the work hours need to be changed. Effects on your stakeholders by the environmental management system. So environmental management system will affect your stakeholders also. So those things also need to be included. Now the example includes environmental conditions, climate, air, water and quality, land use, existing contamination, natural resources and availability and biodiversity. So nowadays what is happening? The natural resources are getting less and less because we are using them enormously. We are not taking care of those natural resources. We are not thinking about the future. External cultural, social, political, legal, regulatory, financial, technological, economic, natural, and competitive circumstances, whether international, national, regional, or local. So when you are identifying your external issues, environmental related, you can go through these: social, cultural, political. So each of these need to be identified, because all these are requirement by ISO 14001 2015 requirements. Now, internal characteristics or conditions of the organization, such as activities, products and services, strategies, direction, culture and capabilities, example people, knowledge and process system. So these things also need to be included, because what will happen if you are producing certain type of product that can affect the environment also. So those things also you have to identify in your company manual, environmental management system manual. The organization shall determine, shall means must. Okay, it is very, very important. If you will not determine these things, you can get NCR. Okay, during the lead auditor, during the audit time, if any third party certification is happening, or if any person is doing the internal audit also, he or she, they can give you NCR if you are not managing these. Wherever you will get the shall, it is must, you have to do. Okay, the organization shall determine the interested parties. Okay, you have to determine the interested parties, means you have to identify who is your interested parties. They are relevant to the environmental management system. Okay, so they should be relevant to your environmental management system. The relevant needs and expectations. What are their needs and expectations? So first you have to identify interested parties, and after then you have to identify their needs and expectation. What is their needs and what they are expected from you, what they are expecting from you. So those things you have to identify one by one. Now, which of these needs and expectations become its compliance obligations? Clause number 4.3, the organization shall determine the boundaries and applicability of environmental management system to establish its scope. As I said earlier, that you have to define your company scope, organization scope, and you have to define your boundaries. So you have to work within that boundary. You cannot work after that boundary. You can work, but at least you have to define your boundary. When determining this scope, the organization shall consider, when you are scope of the environmental management system, when you are defining, you shall consider the external and internal issues referred to 4.1. Okay, the compliance obligation referred to 4.2 clause, its organizational units, functions and physical boundaries, its activities, products and services that you are doing or providing, its authority and ability to exercise control and influence. So once the scope is defined, all activities and product and services of the organizations within that scope needs to be included in the environmental management system. Okay, so that you have to include it in your manual. The scope shall be maintained as documented information. Shall means important. You must have to maintain these information as a documented information, where you will mention, you can make a environmental management system plan or manual that you can prepare. It's up to you. Okay, and it should be available for the interested parties. Okay, documented information, and should be available to the interested parties. Who is your interested parties? Stakeholders, employees, contractors, suppliers, and all of them. They should be aware about this. Clause number 4.4, environmental management system. To achieve the intended outcomes, including enhancing its environmental performance, the organization shall establish, implement, maintain, and continually improve an environmental management system, including the process needed and their interactions in accordance with the requirements of this international standards. Okay, to achieve the intended outcomes, whichever you have decided. Okay, the outcomes including enhancing its environmental management system or environmental performance, the organization have to establish, implement, and you have to implement and continually improve the environmental related requirements which is mentioned in this standard. Okay, the organization shall consider the knowledge gained in 4.1 and 4.2 clauses when establishing and maintaining environmental management system. So you have to consider the requirements which is mentioned in clause number 4.1 and 4.2 whenever you are maintaining your environmental management system documents. So it is the requirements. Now clause number 5.1, leadership and commitment. So clause number 5, it's talk about the leadership and commitment. So clause number 5.1, leadership and commitment. Top management shall demonstrate leadership and commitment. So it is this clause talk about the top management and how they have to manage the environmental management system and how they have to lead. So top management shall demonstrate by taking accountability for the effectiveness of the environmental management system. It is the top management responsibility that they have to take the accountability for the effectiveness of the environmental management system. For these things, they can do the certain other things. They can like appoint environmental management related the people who can manage the standards, who can manage environmental related things, and they can provide the training also, resources also, certain other things they can do. They have to ensure the policy and objectives are established. Okay, it is a top management requirement that they have to make sure that the environmental management system policy and objectives are established and followed. Integrating environment management system with business plan. Your business plan should be integrated with the EMS. Ensuring resources, they have to provide the resources. They have to make sure they're communicating the importance of environmental management system with the different level of staff in the organization. Ensuring the EMS meets intended outcomes, they have to make sure that environmental management system meets the intended outcome. The goal should be met. Directing and supporting persons in the environmental management system. They have to direct and they have to support through the resources, through the training, and through certain other things to make sure that the company is meeting the environmental related management system related goals and objectives. They have to promote continuous and improvement, supporting other management roles. So top management have to support the other down level management roles to make sure that environmental management system related objectives and targets are achieved. The three pillars commitments of your environmental management policy is compliance, protection of the environment, and continual improvement. These are the three pillars of the environmental management system policy. Okay, top management must establish, implement, and define the policy. It is the top management requirement and it is the top management responsibility that top management shall establish and implement and maintain environmental policy that within the defined scope of its environmental management system. As I told you that clause number 4.4, we have to define the scope, in the management system, environmental management system. So as per that one, we have to create the policy. That policy should be linked with the clause number 4. So scope of its environmental management system which is defined, that should be mentioned in the policy also. As appropriate to the purpose and the context of the organization, including the nature, scale, and environmental impacts of its activities, products, services, and certain other thing that is provided by the business, includes commitment to the protection of the environment, okay, and including prevention of pollution and other specific commitments relevant to the context of the organization. So these things should be mentioned in the environmental management policy. So whenever you are creating any environmental management policy, you have to make sure that that policy should consist of the legal requirements, okay, national requirements, and ISO related requirements. So ISO 14001, whatever the requirements is there, those things should be there reflected in the policy. Note, other specific commitments to protect the environment can include sustainable resources use like climate change, mitigation and adaptation, and protection and biodiversity and ecosystem. Those things also you can mention. The environmental policy shall, okay, it is very important. The environmental policy shall be implemented, okay, maintained as a documented information. It should be a document. There should be a document. It should not be that verbally you are saying that we have created the policy and we have communicated the policy, but there is no evidence. So evidence is only will be considered whenever there is a document. So you have to maintain as a documented information to this policy. Okay, and it should be communicated within the organization. Okay, within the organization to your interested parties, stakeholders, employees. So the communication is there are different ways. You can communicate your interested party through the email, through the website also. Internal staff, you can communicate through the training, TBD talks, salary slips, or certain other things. There are so many ways, okay, to the communication, and it should be available to interested parties. As I said, that should be communicated to the interested parties. Clause number 5.3, it talks about the organization roles and responsibilities and authorities. So roles, responsibilities and authorities must be assigned, documented and communicated. It should be documented. People, each and every person, roles and responsibilities, because every person, one person cannot do so many activities, so many roles person cannot perform. Like there will be only one CEO. All staff cannot be CEO. All staff cannot be manager for the particular what you call department or particular production area. There will be only one manager. There will be only one senior manager. So roles and responsibilities for each and every person, that should be clearly defined, and it should be available as a documented information, and it should be communicated to the that particular person also, and it should be acknowledged also. Okay, and there should be signed or like communication, email communication, and the people should acknowledge also. So if there is any issue or any incident or accident, God forbid, so you can refer those documents. As a health and safety professional, it is very important for you, and these documents will be very crucial for you, and these documents can save you also in future. The top management must assign responsibility. It is the top management responsibility that they have to assign the responsibilities for reporting on the performance of the EMS. So environmental management system related things need to be reported also by each and every person, and each and every person should follow the environmental management system related roles and responsibilities. It is not the what you call that HSE responsibility that to manage the environmental management system. It is the company responsibility. When each and every person will come together, then you will achieve the requirements of ISO 14001:2015 environmental management system related requirements. Okay, and top management shall ensure that the responsibilities and authorities for relevant roles and responsibilities are assigned, communicated within the organization. It is their requirement. Top management shall assign the responsibilities and authorities for ensuring that the environmental management systems conforms to the requirements of this standard. Okay, and reporting on the performance of the environmental management system, including environmental performance, to top management. It is the requirements of top management. Clause number 6.1.1, actions to address risk and opportunities. So determine risk and opportunities associated with the environmental management system aspects, legal requirements. Consider following the clauses 4.1, 2, okay, and references which is mentioned in the 3. Determining potential emergencies. Okay, so these actions to address risk and opportunity, these risks need to be addressed in 6.1 when you are preparing the risk assessment or what you call emergency management plan. So in those emergency management plan, you have to include all these things. Okay, so the organizations shall establish, implement and maintain the process needed to meet the requirements which is mentioned in 6.1.1, okay, and 6.1.4 when planning for the environmental management system. The organization shall consider the issues referred to 4.1.1 and 4.2, which I told you. Okay, a scope of its environmental management system and determining the risk and opportunities related to the business. There may be some risk in the business and there may be some opportunities in the business. So all these things you need to be considered when you are preparing the emergency management plan or when you are doing any risk assessment under clause 6.1. Okay. After then, issues and requirements identified in 4.12 addressed, give assurance that the environmental management system can be achieved. Its intended outcomes, prevent or reduce undesired effects, including the potential or external environmental conditions to affect the organization's related things. Okay. The organization shall maintain a documented information. This risk assessment and emergency management plan should be maintained as a documented information. Okay, it should be available as a documents, and of its risk and opportunities need to be addressed, and your risk and opportunities related to the business need to be addressed in this document, and it should be communicated to the interested parties also. That is the requirement under 6.1.1. Clause number 6.1.2, environmental aspects and impacts. So this clause talk about the environmental aspects and impacts. So within the defined scope of the environmental management system, the organization shall determine the environmental aspects of its activities. Okay, definitely the business performing some activities, and those activities there is some aspects and impacts. So those need to be identified that can control, and those it can influence, and their associated environmental impacts considering a life cycle perspective. When determining environmental related aspects, the organization shall take into accounts, okay, you have to take into accounts change including planned or new developments and or modified activities, old activities, change activities, modified activities, and different type of activities which you are performing in the organization that need to be considered. Abnormal conditions and reasonably foreseeable emergency situations. Suppose you are like oil and gas, any abnormal situations, so those situations also you need to include it also. Okay, if there is a fire in a building, and you will use the fire suppression system, and the water will be used, and after then that water, where it will go, that water should not go to the directly to the river and directly to the drainage. That water need to be treated also, because there is a chemical and certain other things are mixed with those water. So those things also need to be considered in environmental aspects and impacts. Any emergency situation, the organization shall determine those aspects that have or can have a significant environmental related impacts, significant environmental aspects, by using established criteria. And environmental impacts criteria used to determine its significant environmental aspects. One thing you have to note down that significant environmental aspects can result in risk and opportunities associated with either adverse environmental impacts or beneficial environmental impacts. So it could be risk also, and it could be threats also, so either way. So let's say that this is your industry, and from your industry you are using the energy. Okay, sorry. Okay, so each and every organization you are using the energy. So what will happen? Fossil fuel depletion, metal chips, mineral depletion, storm water, water pollution. Okay, storm water or firefighting related water will pollute it, wastewater, and water pollution. So these are your aspects, and these are the impacts on the environment. Transportation, what will happen? Air pollution. Packaging, landfill space, air emissions, air pollutions. So this is the environmental aspects and impacts. Sorry. So environmental aspects: severity of impact, probability of impact, legal issues, business objectives. By using established criteria, significance. So just some example significance criteria is here. Environmental aspects, the life cycle. Determine the environmental aspects considering the life cycle perspective for activities, products, and services that it can control or influence, taking into account. Okay, so what you have to do, you have to determine the environmental aspect by considering the life cycle of any product. Okay, how much time it will require to degrade, biodegradable. Okay, biodegradable products. Okay, how much time it will take to mix in the soil, okay, how much time it will get degrade, okay. So all these things need to be considered also, okay. After then product services, okay, what type of services, product and activity that you are performing, that need to be considered also. Changes of management of change, that need to be considered also. Emergencies also need to be considered, as I said. Clause number 6.1.3, compliance obligations. Determine compliance obligations, have access to them, and determine how they apply, take them into account. So the organization shall determine and have access to the compliance obligations related to its environmental aspects. So that is the requirement. After then, determine how these compliance obligations apply to the organization. Take these compliance obligations into account when establishing, implementing, and maintaining and continually improving its environmental management system. The organization shall maintain documented information. So that should be, all these things need to be maintained as a documented information of its compliance of obligations. So whatever things you are complying, so these things need to be maintained as a documented information. You have to note down that very important thing, compliance obligations can result in risk and opportunities of the organization. For any organizations, it could be risk and opportunity, either way. Now, example of legal requirements. So there are legal requirements for each and every countries, and the legal requirements can be different. Okay. So legal requirements, it said the hazardous waste management in USA, 40 CFR. Okay. 261. What is the aspect? Aspect is hazardous waste disposal. Sorry. Air quality permit. It is a legal requirement under this code. Okay. Air emissions, this is the aspect. Stormwater exclusion, this is the legal requirement, and stormwater runoff. Municipal wastewater, thermosoil code, okay, and wastewater dissolve. So these are the legal requirements. Planning to actions. Organization shall plan significant environmental aspects, compliance obligations, risk and opportunities. So the organization shall address actions to address significant environmental aspects, compliance obligations, risk and opportunities identifies in 6.1.1b on how to integrate it and implement the actions to environmental management system process, okay, and 6.2 clause 7, clause number 8, clause number 9, and clause number 9.9, 9.1. When planning these actions, the organization shall consider its technological actions, its financial, operational, and business requirements. Okay, so planning to actions. So when you are planning for the actions, so all of these things which is mentioned in the different clauses, that you have to consider. Okay. Now 6.2.1 and 6.2.2, objectives and planning to actions. So objectives, results to be achieved consistent with the environmental policy, okay, considering aspects, legal requirements, and its risk and opportunities. 6.2.1 Environmental Management System 14001, it is required that each and every business, they should set some objectives and their targets. Okay, the organization shall establish environmental management system related objectives and its relevant functions and levels, taking into account the organization's significant environmental aspects. Okay, aspects related, the targets or the objectives should be set, and it should be, when you are setting your objectives and targets, as you know, that should be SMART. I hope you know what is a SMART. SMART. So SMART means specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time scale. So these things you have to mention, these things you have to consider and keep in mind whenever you are making any objectives, whenever you are planning to create any objectives and targets. Okay. After then, planning actions, programs. What will be done, resources, responsible party, and due date. To achieve these objectives, whatever the things you need, resources, planning, or actions, so those things you have to identify also. Okay, it should not be done only that you will identify the objectives, you will create the objectives, but you don't know that how you're going to achieve them. So you have to prepare the plan also to make sure that you are going to achieve these objectives through this plan. So it is interrelated. Now examples, objectives and plan. So these are some environmental management system objectives I have prepared here. Okay, let's say that this is the objective and these are the KPI number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, this is the target, this is the time frame, the whole year time frame, first quarter when I will measure these KPI, I will measure in first quarter, second quarter, third quarter and fourth quarter. And cumulative at the end of the year, I will decide, I will check that whether I have achieved for the year or not. Okay, so first one I have said that reduce water consumption, KPI number 1. What target I have? Target, as I said, it should be measurable. So what you can measure? Only the numbers you can measure. So it should be number. Okay, I will not say that I will do better compared to last year. But what was the result in the last year? What was the number in the last year? So that number you have to mention. Or you can say that I will reduce the water consumption by 5%. Okay, 5% compared to last year. Okay, so that you will put here. So this is the one KPI. After that, reduce chemical spill. Okay, KPI number 2, target 0. I will make sure that there is no chemical spill. Okay, so same in the same I have prepared other KPI also. You can go through these KPI also. Now these are the KPI I have prepared. Okay, now what I have to do, I have to prepare a plan. So in the plan, let's say that my first KPI, reduce water consumption. Okay, to reduce the water consumption, what I need, what I will do, what plan I have to do. Okay, first one, to reduce the water consumption, I have to check that where is my company or my organization using the water in the organization. Okay, I have to identify the area first, one thing. Second thing, I will train the people. The training need to be provided to make sure that the people who's using the water in the different areas, they are aware about the water related or environmental management system related things also. If they don't know the importance of water conservation, water related thing, they will not use the water properly. After that, the third one, the water equipment. What are the equipment you are using? Maybe you are using the water in the toilet. Maybe you are using the water in the different other thing, urinals also. If you are using the water in the urinal, what you can do? There is a different way. Instead of using the water in the urinal, what you can do? You can use the biodegradable. There is some biodiverse related some chemical which you will place in that urinal, and you don't need to put the water at all. The water can be saved from that one. After then, the fourth one, you have to reduce the water pressure. Okay. So that is the one. Water pressure, if you will reduce, water will run off very less pressure. If you will increase the water pressure, more water will go for 1 second or 1 minute, the more water will go. After then, you have to measure the water. Water meter should be installed in areas to measure the water, how much water you have used last month. Now after the implementation, how much water you have used. So that data you need to compare in that area. After then, in all the organization there is a AC. Okay, the AC also has a condensation water. That condensate water, that also need to be used also. That can be used also. Okay, condensation water, if you will link with the pipe also, so many pipes you can link with each AC condensate water outside the compressor. The water will drip on that pipe, and that water you can conserve, and that water you can use for something some other places or something other, to clean the vehicle, to certain other things you can do that one. So likewise, you have to identify the plan. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, these are my plan. Okay, and these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, these plan will give me the benefit to achieve this 5% target. So this is the proper way of putting the preparing the objectives and the plan. So in this way, you have to manage your objectives and plan. I hope it is clear now. Now the clause number 7. Clause number 7, it talks about the supports and resources. So the support and resources that we need to maintain the environmental management system, and achieve the environmental management system related targets and objectives to maintain the ISO certification also. Okay, the organization shall determine and provide resources. So it is a requirement. Okay, shall, you have to determine the and provide the resources. You have to determine the resources. First of all, you have to identify the resources, okay, in your manual. What are the resources you required, okay, and how you will get it there, and who is responsible for the resources. So those things need to be mentioned there. Establish, implement, maintenance and continual improvement of the environmental management system. You need the resources. So it is 7.1. 7.2 and 7.3, competency and awareness. So 7.2, it talk about the competency. Okay, so the necessary competence, ensure competence, training needs, after then take action to acquire competency. 7.3, ensure the persons are aware of environmental policy. So you need to provide the training about the environmental policy, significant aspects of their work, benefits, improved personal performance, and implications of not conforming to the environmental management system. Awareness, the organization shall ensure that organization doing work under the organization's control and are aware of the environmental policy. Your staff, your interested parties, stakeholders, contractors, all of them should be aware about the environmental policy, company environmental policy. The significant environmental aspects and related actual potential environmental impacts, aspects and impacts, they should be aware also, okay, associated with their work, because their work will be aspects and impacts. Their contribution to the effectiveness of the environmental management system, how they can contribute to the environmental management system, and after that the implications of not conforming with the environmental management system. What will be the implications if they are not conforming with the environmental management system requirements, including not fulfilling the organization compliance obligations. So all these things need to be informed to the staff or the stakeholders and the interested parties. Now, specifying environmental training needs. Clause number 7.3, it's asked about the awareness. So when you are awareing your people, you need to prepare your training plan also. Training plan could be monthly, training plan could be yearly. So you have to prepare the training plan. And training plan should be documented. There should be a document of training plan. During the audit, you have to show this training plan also. Okay, so training plan should be include all the team member, not only the down level staff. The top management should be also included in the training plan, because they should be aware also environmental related thing also. Okay, so you have to include the top management. Okay, ISO 14001 awareness, yes, they required. Okay, evacuation plan, yes, they required, because they have to evacuate also. Okay, so that they need. After then, clerical admin, clerk and admin, they need. Okay, so these are the people, and these are the training requirement. Wherever the cross is there, yes, they need the training. Okay, and production supervisors, yes, they need awareness training, they need evacuation plan, they need slip prevention and resources, and they need the SPCC required training, and they need the hazardous waste training, and they need the operational controls. Okay, as per the requirements, as per their work, as per the environmental management system requirements, as per the legal requirements. So when you are preparing the training plan, all of these things need to be considered. Okay, the person knowledge, the person background, okay, the person position, and the person during the emergency, legal requirement, ISO 14001 requirements, and your operation requirement. So all these things need to be considered when you are preparing your training plan. Clause number 7.2 and 7.3, competency and awareness. Significant aspect, okay, operational controls, work instructions, affected employees, competency indicator, affected contractors and suppliers. Now, how will you check that whether your staff are competent or not? Now we talk about the competent, okay, but how will you check whether your staff is competent or not? Okay, so this is the competence indicator here. It will let you know that whether your staff is competent or not, or if they are competent, then they should these things. If they are not competent, they should not follow these things. They should not do these things. Supervisor sign off. Any document, if there is a supervisor sign off, yes, the supervisor is competent to do that, to check that thing. We need to make sure that the supervisor is competent to do that thing also. So you need to check also, interview also. Okay, training and test record. Through the training and testing record, you can check also whether they are competent or not. Okay, supervisor sign off, training record. So through these things, certification thing also, so you can check. Now, clause number 7, it talks about communication. Develop procedure for internal and external communication. Okay, you should maintain or prepare a procedure for the internal and external communication. Internal interested parties and external interested parties. For the external interested parties, you don't need to communicate each and everything. For the external interested parties like stakeholders, contractors, and your different group of companies, you need to communicate policies, okay, ISO certification related things, and certain other very important thing, okay, do's and don'ts when they visit your site also. So these things you need to communicate with them. After the internal communication, so internal communication, what you will communicate, how you will communicate, when you will communicate, whom you will communicate. So these things should be mentioned, okay, such as regulatory agencies. These are the external communication bodies, okay, community compliance, sustainability issues, customers, and others. So that you need to consider. The organization shall establish, implement, and maintain the processes. So you have to maintain the process needed for internal and external communications relevant to the environmental management system, which that should be relevant to your environmental management system. And on what it will be communicated, what you will communicate, okay, you have to maintain make a plan, what you will communicate, when you will communicate, okay, and with whom to communicate, how you will communicate, and when establish its communication process, the organization shall take into account its compliance obligations, ensure that environmental information communicated is consistent with the information generated within the environmental management system and is reliable. Okay, so when you are making a communication plan, you have to take the consideration of the things which is mentioned in the ISO 14001. Okay, so the organization shall respond to relevant communication on its environmental management system. The organization shall retain documented information. This process you have to, when you are making the SOP or any document for the communication, you have to maintain this as a documented information. The document should be there. So during the audit, you have to present as a document. So that is the 7.4 communication. 7.4.2 internal communication. The organization shall internally communicate information relevant to the environmental management system. So internally you have to communicate. 7.4.3, it talks about the external communication. The organization shall externally communicate information relevant to the environmental management system as established organizations communication. Okay, so that you have to communicate internal and external communication. 7.4.2 and 7.4.3. And that and these things also should be maintained as a documented information. When the auditor will ask you that have you communicated these policy to the internal parties, internal interested parties, or external interested parties, then you can't say only yes. You have to present, you have to provide the evidence also. The evidence could be email, as I said, websites, salary slips, okay, TBT, training records, and certain other things, notice boards also. So that can be provided as a evidence. Clause number 7.5, documentation information. Okay, 7.5.1 general. Whatever is required by ISO 14001, you have to maintain as a documented information. You have to keep in mind that. Okay, whatever is mentioned is there in ISO 14001, that should be in a document. Whatever is needed for environmental management system effectiveness, that should be documented. Okay. 7.5.2, creating and updating document. So this clause is talks about that how you will create the document and what are the things you have to maintain when you are creating and updating the documents. So creating and updating, when creating and updating documentation information, the organization shall ensure appropriate identification and description. if you are creating any document, let's say that if you are creating any format, that document format should be clearly identified with the name. Let's say that environmental management system objectives format, okay, clearly identified. And after that, the description should be there also, title, the date, and the author, or reference number should be there in the document. Okay, company reference number, IMS, integrated management system document number, or certain other document number should be there. Format language, okay, software version and graphics, whatever the software, language, graphics will you use, that should be included in your documented information also. And the media, example paper, electronics, how you will maintain the document. If you are going to maintain as a paper, that you have to mention. If you are going to maintain as a media like soft copy, that you have to mention also. After then, review and approval for suitability and adequacy. Who will be review the document? Who will have the control of those documents? That should be mentioned also. Now, the documented information required by the environmental management system by this international standard shall be controlled to ensure it is available and suitable for use. The document, if you are creating, that should be available to the staff, to the people in the organization, and it should be suitable also. It should be protected from the loss of confidentiality. It should be protected, and improper use or loss of integrity. For the control of documented information, the organization shall address the following activities as applicable. Distribution, whom you will distribute, who should have the access, retrieval, and use of these documents, who will store, preservation, including preservation of the legibility, control of changes, who has the control of changes. Can people change the document format or change the name of the format anytime? So this is the common issue. Whenever I do the audit, whenever I'm going for the audit, this is the common issue. The people, they by themselves, what they will do, they will change the document name, or they will change the document date. So by themselves, they are start to do those things. So so these things need to be controlled also. That is very, very important. So these are the things under the 7.5 documented information, creating and updating, and how you have to control the document. Okay. External documents also you have to make a process. So what are the external documents you are using? The list should be there. Okay, the list of your internal documents and the list of your external documents that you are using in the organization, that should be there. External documents you have like ISO standards, ISO certification, legal requirements related documents, or any contract, legal contract, or certain other things that you have to make a list of these documents, external documents. Now, there are some example like records 105, elements, context of the organization, talks about the documentation. There are some clauses which is talks about the documents, and it asks you to maintain as a documented information. So here I have mentioned which are the clauses which is talks about the documented information, and you have to maintain as a document. Now, the context of the organization, clause number 4, is scope of the document. Okay, scope of the company, it should be a documented information. Entire environmental management system, including process and their interactions, document should be there. Relevant internal and external issues, condition affecting to the organization, interested parties, their needs and expectation, and compliance obligation, there should be a document. Clause number 5.2, environmental policy, the policy should be documented. Then the organization roles and responsibilities, okay, their job description should be there. Clause number 6, planning process. So clause number 6.1, it asks about the documents, the records, procedure and process, and these are the records and implied records. Environmental aspects and impact records should be there. Significant aspects, decision criteria. Okay, so in the same way, wherever it is asked about the documents, records that you have to maintain in the organization. This is very, very important. The same here also. 7.4, communication, operation. So these are the documents under the 7.4, communication, and clause number 8. So these are the records that we have to maintain. And these are the documents required under the clause number 9, 9.1, okay, and 9.2, 9.2.1, 9.2.2 internal audit program management review, clause number 9.3, and clause number 10, non-conformity and corrective action. If there is NCR, non-conformity, and how you're going to correct it. So those documents should be there. Continual improvement, management review meeting, or how you are continually improving, like audit reports or inspection reports. So those will come under continual improvement, other evidence. So these are the documents and the information you need to maintain as per the ISO 14001 different clauses, which is mentioned here. Now let's move to clause number 8.1, operational planning and control. Establish process needed to meet the environmental management system 6.1.2, okay, 6.1.1 and 6.2 also. Establishing criteria for process and implementing control of process to meet criteria. Hazardous waste storage, boiler operation, paint booth maintenance, stormwater sampling, air permit, etc. So whatever the operation you are doing inside your organization, so all these things, operational, each and everything need to be planned, and you have to control them, okay. So there should be a documented information for this one, and you have to mention that how you want to control these things to make sure that these things will not affect the environment. Like example, chiller for odor control devices, WTTP, WWTP, air pollution control devices, cooling water boiler, blow down, okay. The organization shall establish, implement, control, and maintain process need to meet environmental management system. By establishing operation criteria for the process, implementing control of the process in according with the operation criteria. Right. Operational planning and control. Control plan and changes, consequences and unintended changes, and mitigate the environmental impacts. Ensure outsourced process are controlled or influenced. Address life cycle prescribed by, okay. The consistent with the life cycle perspective, the organization shall establish control as appropriate to the environmental management system and their requirements, and address in the design and development process. If you are designing and developing any product, so environmental related things need to be considered during the design and development process, okay, at that time. And the life cycle, you need to consider the life cycle of the product also. Determine its environmental requirements for the procurement of product and services as appropriate. Communicate its relevant environmental requirements to external providers, okay. When you are providing your product to the external contractor or the external interested parties, you have to communicate the environmental related requirements to related to the product also. So it is the requirement. About potential significance, requirements that you have to do, impacts associated with the transportation or delivery use, end of life product treatment, and how you will treat the product when it's going to finish, okay, to make sure that during the treatment process also it should not affect the environment also in harm way. Emergency preparedness. Emergency preparedness also very important. Potential emergencies which we have identified in 6.1.1, okay, as per your business requirement, as per your process, you have to identify the emergencies, because each and every business has different emergencies. Oil and gas, like construction, production areas, chemical process plant. So each and every organization has different emergencies. So as per your emergencies, as per your business requirements, you have to prepare the emergency preparedness. You have to develop the emergency preparedness and response plans. First of all, you have to identify what are the emergencies as per your organizations, okay. Emergency, stormwater, okay. Emergency like fire, bomb threat, any earthquake, okay, and certain other thing like chemical spill. So how you gonna like control them? So first of all, you have to identify those emergencies, and then you have to prepare a plan that how you're going to control them. Include plans for mitigating environmental impacts. How you will make sure that these things will not affect the environment. You have to test the emergency plan also, like fire drills. Okay, so first of all, you have to identify the emergencies. Second thing, what you have to do, once you will identify the emergencies, you have to make the plan, a stepwise step, that what you will do if this emergency will occur, what you will do, stepwise. Okay, first of all, you will call, and that will happen. And second thing, what you have to do, you have to prepare a emergency response team. Okay, emergency response team should be created who will take control during the emergency. Okay, the organization shall establish, implement, and maintain the process needed to prepare for and respond to potential emergency situation identified in 6.1.1. The organization shall prepare to respond by, you have to plan the actions to prevent or mitigate adverse environmental impacts. Now you have to respond to actual emergency situations by take action to prevent or mitigate the consequences or emergency situations appropriate to the magnitude of the emergency and the potential environmental impact. Periodically, you have to test through the drill. You have to plan the drill also. Okay, and you have to review and revise the process and plan response actions, in particular after the occurrence of emergency situations or test. If any emergency situation occur, then you have to plan, okay, to make sure that you are doing better next time. You have to provide the relevant information and training to the people related to the emergencies, preparedness, and response as appropriate to the relevant interested parties, including persons working under its control. The organization shall maintain documented information. So that should be maintained as a documented information. Example, list of potential emergencies. So here I have provided you the list of potential emergencies. So potential emergencies or accidents, it could be floods, okay, water pollution from vehicles and the machines, it is a potential impact on the environment, okay, hurricanes, loss of human life, tornadoes, loss of human life, fire, air pollution could be happen, and loss of human life also, chemical spills, small chemical spills, large wastewater spills. Okay, so these are some examples of emergencies. So likewise, you have to prepare all the emergencies. Okay, you have to list down and you have to prepare the plan how you're gonna deal with those emergencies, and you have to do the drill also. Drill also, you have to make a plan for the yearly drill. So you have to make sure that each and everything you are including in the drill, and you are conducting the drill regularly to make sure the people and the emergency response team member, they are aware about these things. After that, when you are preparing the emergency response team members, you have to make sure that you are including the each and every person from the each department to the emergency response team. Do not include only the HSC team in the emergency response team, because the HSC team don't have all the information and the knowledge. When you are preparing the emergency response team, okay, include the person from the office area, okay, administrator area. After then, include the person from the maintenance, okay, electrical, plumbing, or whoever the person is there. Include the security who can control the crowd and the certain other things, who has the keys for the certain areas. Include the HSC team, include the production area people, include the cleaning people, okay, include. So the thing is, you have to include all the people from the different areas, at least one person from all the areas, to make sure you are preparing your emergency response team properly, okay, and they should have the knowledge, and your emergency response team member, they should be trained also in fire safety also, and the first aid also. It is the requirements, okay. So I hope, I'm not sure that whether it is a legal requirement in your country or not, but it is a legal requirement in UAE also, and so that we have to prepare. So that is clause number 8. Now the clause number 9.1, monitoring, measurement, analysis, and evaluation, general. Now what you have to do, you have to determine performance metrics and comparison criteria, monitoring methods, when and where you will monitor, evaluation of metrics, okay, effectiveness of the environmental management system, conduct calibrations or verifications, communicate performance data as per communication and process. So the organization what need to do? Organization need to monitor, measure, and analyze and evaluate the environmental management system performance. For that, the organization what they need to do? They need to be monitored and measured. Methods of monitoring, how they're going to measure, how they're going to monitor. The method need to be identified clearly. Okay, and third one, criteria against which the organization will evaluate. The criteria or of monitoring, measurement, against which you will monitor or measure or evaluate performance. Appropriate indicators. So when the monitoring and measuring shall be performed, okay, when you are going to monitor or measure, when you're going to do the audit plan should be there, audit program should be there. Okay, so these are the requirements under clause number 9.1. So significant aspect, wastewater discharge, monitoring and measurement, operational controls, work instructions, dye formulas, okay, finishing formulas, general wastewater permit, affected equipment maintenance. Key characteristics, monitoring parameters, permit violations, so the permit you can check, calibrated equipment certification, flow meter, after then wastewater lab certification. Okay, so likewise what you can do, you can monitor. How you will monitor? You will monitor by observation also. Measure, how you will measure? You will measure by using any thermometer, using any meter. Okay, you can measure the number. After that, analysis the number, analysis the records. You have to analysis the record. After that, evaluate. So you have to evaluate also. You have to do the interview also with the people. So in this way, you have to monitor, measure, analysis, and evaluate. Clause number 9.2, evaluation of compliance, the second audit program. Conduct evaluation of compliance against compliance obligations mentioned in clause number 6.1.3, used to be legal and other environmental requirements. Develop a process for evaluation of compliance with frequency, okay, and conduct the EOC and take actions if needed. Maintain knowledge and understanding of its compliance status. The organization shall establish, implement, and maintain the process needed to evaluate fulfillment of its compliance obligations. The organization shall determine, okay, the frequency that obligations will be evaluated. Means frequency of audit you need to clearly identify. When you will do the audit, how frequently you will do the audit, or how frequently you will do the inspection, that you have to identify. You have to evaluate compliance and take action if needed. When you are doing the audit, if there is any non-conformity, you have to take the action also. Maintain knowledge and understanding of its compliance status. The organization shall retain documented information. So audit related things, the audit program should be as a documented information. Okay. Now how to conduct the audit, or how to prepare an audit plan, that I have mentioned in my if you have gone through my other videos in the channel, I have prepared for ISO 45001 2018, which is an occupational health and safety management system related training. In that part 4, I have clearly mentioned and I have clearly showed you that how you prepare the audit plan and what are the process, what are the steps you have to follow. Okay, so when you are preparing the audit plan, you have to follow the document and you have to refer the document ISO 19011 2018. That will tell you that how to conduct the audit, opening meeting, closing meeting, audit plan. Okay, so all these things will be there that you can refer and you can go through that video. Clause number 9.2.1, internal audit. To determine if EMS meets, okay, environmental management system, if meets, you have to determine ISO 14001, okay, EMS procedures and programs. Are you doing what you said you would do? Okay, that you have to check through the internal audit. So as an organization, you need to make sure that internal audits at planned intervals to provide information on whether the environmental management system conforms to the organization's own requirements for its environmental management system. So through the audit, you will check that whether the organization is maintaining its own requirements or not. After that, the organizations the requirements of the international standards and is effectively implemented and maintained. That you have to check through the audit. ISO related standards requirements, okay, and international standard related requirements, legal related requirements, and the business related requirements. Whether the company is following these things or not, that you have to check through the audit. When you are doing the audit, okay, don't surprise the people, okay, inform them in a well advance so they will be prepared also. And when you are doing the audit, sometime do the random audit, do not inform them at all, and sometime inform them. So mix the audit. So when you are telling the people that you going to conduct the audit and that day, what will happen? They will cover up, okay, they will prepare. So what will happen? Sometime you will lose those things which is not showed up during the audit also, okay. So that's why what you have to do, you have to do the random audit, okay, without information, without any alert, okay, and sometime you have to inform them also. So it should be combined, mix. 9.2.2 internal audit program. You have to establish an internal audit program and you have to implement and maintain the audit program. So including it, the audit program should include the frequency, okay, how frequently you will do the audit, the method, how you will do the audit, what are the method you will check. Maybe you will do the online audit, maybe you will do the physical audit, maybe you will go the on-site audit. So that you have to put, okay, you have to mention as a documented information, and these things should be included in the document, okay, that is the requirement. You have to put the responsibilities also of the auditor, who is responsible for the audit, planning requirements, and reporting, how you will report, whom you will report in the internal audit program. So when establishing the internal audit program, you have to take consideration that the environmental importance of the process concerned. So when you are doing the audit, you have to take the concern about the environmental management system related thing, okay. The changes affecting to the organization and the results of previous audit, that also need to be considered. And the organization need to define the audit criteria, the scope for each audit. So audit criteria and the scope of the each audit also need to be defined also. So do not just go for the audit. So before you start the audit, define the criteria and define the scope of the audit. Scope means in this term, like which are the departments you're going to audit and what is the criteria of the audit, okay. Maybe the interview, maybe the documentation you will check, maybe the like physical visit you will do. So those criteria need to be mentioned also in the audit program. And select auditors and conduct audit to ensure objectivity and the impartiality of the audit process. So you have to select the auditors also with you when you are conducting the audit. Maybe the production manager, maybe the supervisor of the maintenance team, okay, different people can be in the audit team. Ensure that the results of the audits are reported to the relevant management. After the audit, you have to make sure that you are reporting the audit report to the relevant people and they are aware about each and everything. If they are not clear about any findings, make sure they are aware and you have to make them aware also, okay, and you have to make them understand by providing the training, by providing other resources of the training. Okay, the organization retain documented information, as I said, the audit program, audit plan, okay, audit criteria, okay, audit report, all should be maintained as a documented information. It is a requirement of ISO. Clause number 9.3, management review meeting. So when you are doing the management review, the top management shall review the organization's environmental management system at planned intervals, okay. So plan intervals means you have to plan the intervals when the management will review the organization related requirements, okay, whether you have matched, whether you have meet the requirements or not, okay. Ensure it continuing suitability, adequacy and effectiveness of the environmental objectives and the targets also, okay. The management review shall include, whenever you are conducting any management review meeting, you have to consider these things. the status of actions from previous management reviews. Maybe you have conducted the management review meeting previous year. Now whatever the points you have discussed during that management review meeting, that also need to be discussed in this management review meeting. Excuse me. Okay, so that you have to discuss during this management review meeting, and you have to check that, and you have to inform that whatever you have decided in last management review meeting, whether that has been done or not, whether resources provided and you achieved those things, and the pending points are clear or not from the last management review meeting. So that you have to check. That is the requirement. Okay, so and external and internal issues that are relevant to the environmental management system, internal and external issues that you have to include in the agenda also of this management review meeting. Needs and expectation of the interested parties, significance environmental aspects which can affect the environment, risk and opportunities of the organization, the extent to which environmental objectives have been achieved, information on the organization, environmental performance. It includes trends in non-conformities, corrective actions, monitoring and measurement results, fulfillment of its compliance obligations, audit results, adequacy of resources relevant, communications from interested parties including complaints, okay, opportunities for continual improvement. So all these things should be included in the management review meeting. Shall conclude and it should include also conclusion on the continuing suitability, adequacy and effectiveness of the environmental management system. So the decisions related to continual improvement opportunities, decisions related to any need for change to the environment, management system including resources, actions if needed, okay. So all these things need to be included in the management review meeting. So what is the proper way of doing the management review meeting? Before performing any management review meeting, please be prepared, because this management review meeting you're going to present to the top management, and there should not be any error in your data, in your information which you're going to provide to the top management. So before starting any management review meeting, make sure you are going to gather all the data from the different sources, okay. As I said, internal external issues, interested parties, training records, whatever the training you did, first aid incidents, fire incident, chemical spill incident, any incident or accident, audit reports, inspection reports, internal external audit reports. So all these things need to be included in the management review meeting, okay. Environmental related concern, health and safety related concerns, so all these things you can include it in the management review meeting also. And when you are presenting, so these are the data you will gather first. Once you will gather these data, okay, make a report. The report should be presentable, okay. It should not be only numbers also. The data, the graph, okay, pie chart, different bar graph, that should be included. Some numbers and some graph also, okay. So it should look presentable. The top management, they will not feel bored also, okay. So you need to keep them engaged during the management review meeting. So this is the first thing. So now you prepare your data. Once you prepare the data, send the management review meeting request to each and every person. When you are sending the So when you are sending management review meeting request to the people, okay, to the different team members, first of all check their calendars before you are sending the request. Make sure they are free and they are available, the time you want and the date. After that, do not forget to include the workers representative or any worker in the management review meeting also, okay. So management review meeting, in this one you have to include the any worker or worker representative. It is the requirement also. Now you have sent the management review meeting request. After then, the date when you will conduct the management review meeting. On the date, what you have to do, you have to make sure that you are prepared well in advance, do the homework, okay, and go through the data also, and make sure you are ready for the questions also which will be thrown by the different team members, because they will going to ask the question also. So whatever the data you are providing, whatever the data you are presenting them, just go through that one and check that whether the questions will come up to you also or not. Okay, maybe the people, they will ask you the data related question also. How did you get the data? From where did you get the data? Is this the data true or not? Okay, what are the resources you use to get the data? So all these questions can come up by the management team member. Okay, and when you are presenting this data, do not make sure that you are not offending anyone. Okay, people should not feel offended. Okay, and you have to present in that way that they will not attack you in words. Okay, so in this way you have to present the data. So once you will present the data, after that you have to note down the management review related the things which is mentioned by the different team members. Maybe some suggestions you will get from the team members also. So those things you have to note it down. Once you will finish the meeting, ask the suggestions and ask for the improvements also from the different team members, how you can improve in the future. So it is a good thing that you are taking the concern from the different team member and you are asking the suggestions from the different team members also. Okay, so it would be the good thing. Now the clause number 10.1, improvement, general. The organization shall determine the opportunities for improvement, clause number 9.1, 2 and 3, and implement necessary actions to achieve the intended outcomes of its environmental management system. So that need to be managed. Clause number 10.2, non-conformity and corrective actions. So non-conformity and corrective actions. When a non-conformity and corrective action, when the non-conformity will occurs at the time, the organization that need to be make sure that react on the timely basis. Okay, you need to react for that non-conformity on a timely basis, take action to control and correction it, deal with the consequences including mitigating adverse environmental impacts. You have to evaluate. Okay, evaluate that the need for actions to eliminate the cause of the non-conformity in order that it does not reoccur again. Okay, and when you are controlling and correcting the non-conformity, there is a proper way that you have to follow. Okay, and when you are preparing the report also, you have to mention each and everything, how you started, who is responsible for that one non-conformity, and what are the resources you need to close that non-conformity, what are the training you need to provide for to close that non-conformity. Okay, and mitigate environmental impacts also immediately. Determine causes and actions needed so that it does not recur again. Okay, and occur potential non-conformities. So these are the clause number 10.2. After that we have the clause number 10.3. So continually improve the suitability, adequacy and effectiveness of the environmental management system to enhance environmental performance. So clause number 10.3, it talks about the continually improvements. So how you will make sure that your management system, environmental management system is continually improving. Okay, so to check the clause number 10, you have to follow the clause number 9, 8, 7, 6, 5 and 4. So when you will make sure that all these 9 clauses till 9 clauses are following properly, your clause number 10.3 is automatically will be achieved. Okay, so that's all from my side. I hope you like this training and the video. If you are new in this channel, please do not forget to subscribe this channel and like the video, and please do share with your friends or colleagues also. And if you need any other training or any other further information, please do let me know also. Okay, so see you in the next video. Thank you so much. Bye.